So how did I start my journey in tech? Well, it started 10 years ago, and I'll kind of backtrack even way before that. Like I said, I'm first generation Hondureña. My parents are from Honduras. I'm the youngest of four. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, specifically Brownsville. Shout out Brooklyn. But I was raised in Birmingham, Alabama. And as I started thinking about going to college and what I was interested in professionally, I decided to move back to New York. And I spent 10 magical, challenging, and everything in between years in New York. And my journey really started when I was interning at a co-working company in New York City. And my internship eventually turned full-time. And that full-time even eventually turned into something more, if that makes sense, because I made a really crazy decision to drop out of school, which for any first gen kids out there, you know that your parents measure the success of how you're doing in life with your education and how well you're being paid at your job. And I think for me, being the first person to ever, one, have access to a job opportunity like that, but secondly, to even have the audacity to say, I'm gonna leave school in pursuit of this, I think was very complicated for me, but showed me at an early age, because I was at 18 at this point, that Amara, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to pursue the things that you're interested in, because even if you don't know what the outcome is, you know that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So long story short, I spent 6 years at that company. It was beautiful, challenging, exhilarating, disheartening, and it was everything in between. And I think that was my first real experience when I understood the value of leadership, the problems with lack of leadership, being taken advantage of, being spoken to disrespectfully, being treated disrespectfully, being exploited, being paid a six-figure salary and not even knowing, how do I maximize this money, right? Like, there were so many things that were happening to me and in my life, and I didn't know how to navigate that. I never sat down with my parents and had that conversation, because that's not even something that they even understood how to comprehend. And I think throughout that entire experience, every year I would continue to push myself and say, you know what, Amara, keep learning, keep growing, keep feeding your curiosity. But I would be remiss if I wasn't honest. You know, I think back when I was 18, 19, my head was too big in a figurative sense. I thought I knew what way was up. I thought I was hot shit. And now, 10 years later, I'm like, girl, you need to sit your ass down, because at the end of the day, we're a constant work in progress. We're a constant evolution. And I think at that point, I was so focused on proving that I just deserved to be in the room that I forgot that at the end of the day, the only thing that landed me in the room was my work. No one handed that to me. So, you know, again, I spent 6 years at that co-working company. We had the opportunity to eventually partner with Verizon, and we were able to essentially help Verizon scale national 5G innovation labs across the nation in a time span of a year. We launched 6 locations in a time span of a year. And this was a couple of years ago, before 5G was the hot talk of the town. And those couple of years where I spent, you know, really working in tandem with Verizon, my mind and my viewpoint and my perspective grew immensely, because I was able to understand, this is what it's like to operate at the highest level. This is what it's like to manage $1 million budgets. This is what it's like to interface with people, even if their ego is involved, where you are trying to scale a business, scale an idea, and also do it with a mission, which is to support local founders and entrepreneurs that are building really interesting ideas. But at the tail end of that experience at Alley, powered by Verizon, I burnt out. I was 21. I was in New York City. I landed in the hospital. My family, who live in New York City, when they would see me, they didn't know who the hell I was. I think I didn't even know who the hell I was. I was a shell of myself. In the pursuit of my career, the expense became me, my well-being, my personality, my mental well-being. And I think that was the first time when I truly realized that, Aymara, if you don't give a fuck about yourself, no other manager, company, or person is gonna give a fuck about you. And that, even though it happened years and years ago, that is a lesson that I will never need to relearn. And I think 10 years later, it has become one of the most important things that I think about in terms of all the work that I'm doing. Because I like to hustle. I'm from New York. Like, I'm trying to get the bag, you feel me? I'm trying to build generational wealth, but never at the expense of my well-being, never at the expense of me moving my body, taking care of myself, feeding my body good and nutritious food. But it took that experience for me to learn that and learn that the hard way. Fast forward to me in the process of recovering, I decided that enough was enough. I was fortunate enough that I was in a position where I was able to leave that job, take a 6-month break, and really kind of reset and figure out, Amara, you've been operating at such a high level at such a young age that I forced myself into this fight or flight mode, where I felt like my body and my mind was always consistently thinking about, what should I be doing? How can I be helping my family more? Financially, do I have enough saved up in case anyone in my family needs something? And I think that compounding effect really broke me, to be quite frank. And it took a solid year for me to get back to the person that I was. And at that point, I had the opportunity to enter into my most recent role at Adobe. I was at Adobe for almost 4 years. I was the platform partnerships manager, and essentially what that means is that I was managing their ecosystem of third-party partners, building integrations across their APIs and SDKs. Adobe is a wonderful organization. I had an exceptional time there, but it wasn't perfect. And I don't think that anything that's worth having is perfect. And part of the reason why I'm doing this talk today is because we spend so much time and put so much emphasis on helping professionals of color enter the workforce, and that's important. That's very, very important. I don't want to detract from that. But we don't spend enough time talking about, and then what? How do we continue to invest in professionals of color? How are we helping them become the decision makers? How are we unlearning our own biases to make space for people? And I think in my most recent interaction, I can truly say without a shadow of a doubt, I think I worked with some of the most caring and intelligent people that I've ever interacted with professionally up until this point. But I also interacted with a lot of people that I think perform what they need to perform. I think I interacted with a lot of leaders that were DEI champions, the people that tell you they invest in DEI and they love DEI and they want to create a space for you on the team, but where it matters the most, they miss the mark. I think it's important, not just for me going through the experience, but also me being in a position where I get to share with people. Don't ever let that impede on your value. Don't ever let someone's perception that they've already made about you dictate how you see yourself and what you're capable of. And I think me going through everything that I've been through in my career, whether it's feeling like I'm not enough, feeling like I'm doing too much, feeling like I'm consistently pouring from an empty cup, all of that has put me in a place to now where I understand I don't care what company, what manager, what person, what ego wants to get in my way. I truly understand what my mission is. My mission is to help our communities get better, open up doors for people that are consistently pursuing opportunities to make their lives better. Because if we don't create our own opportunities, no one's gonna give us that. The last thing that I'll mention, and I'll spend some time talking about this in my talk in a little while, but I'm from New York, so my whole steez right now is I'm gonna hit a white man back with the same energy he's given me. I'm on my white man energy era for 2023 because I want to be professional and respectful when I say this, but I also gotta be straight up. I'm sick and tired of another white man, another manager deciding that my experience is invalid, or what I experienced was my perception, but not what I really experienced, or telling me that I'm not deserving of the raise that I'm asking for. I'm not perfect. I own that. I have so much more to learn, so much more to get better at, so much emotional intelligence to continue to build. But I'm not 21 anymore. I'm not that naive to the point where sometimes people project on you. So if you get anything from what I mentioned, trust yourself, trust your gut, trust the value that you hold. That doesn't mean that you're perfect. That doesn't mean that you're going to do everything right along the way. But the reason that we're fighting for systemic change is because we need it. And it's not an easy road to get there. DEI is still so new. It's a new landscape. But just because someone says that they support DEI doesn't really mean that they're going to be the best support system for you. And I think it's okay for you to acknowledge that. Go find your people, go find your tribe, design your own opportunities. Because, it's 2023. And if we're not going to do it, then no one is going to give that to us. And that's for sure. Thanks for tuning in.